I think I would go to the front. முன்னாடி போயிட்டாங்க இவங்க பிளாக் பண்ணுறாங்க ஆக்சுவலாக. இது அப்படியா உட்காந்து செட்டில் ஆகிட்டாங்க. எப்படி அவங்களுக்கு இல்லைன்னா இப்படி வச்சிடலாம். இந்த ஒரு இது மட்டும்தான் அங்கே இருக்குது. புரியுதா? அது அவர் ஃபிக்ஸ் பண்ணிட்டாங்க. அவர் தொட்டா நம்ம வேண்டாம். இல்லைன்னா ஃபஸ்ட்டில் போய் ஆனால் வைக்கவும் முடியாது. அங்கே போயின்னு ஒன்று போயின்னு இருக்கேன். இதே வச்சுக்கலாம், ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை. ஓகே, எப்படி தெரியும்? half an hour போட்டு ஸ்க்ரீனை மட்டும் கலர் மாற்றி பேச தெரிய மாட்டேன். முன்னாடி ஸ்க்ரீன் மட்டும் கலர் ஒய்ஃபோ ஒயிட் இல்லை மெரூன். மெரூன் கூட லைட் மெரூன் சார்.
Bene, buonasera, benvenuti a tutti. Il microfono non si fa. Bene, allora diamo inizio alla discussione della tesi di dottorato del nostro confratello Jeyaraj su Abhinatana, dal titolo Bi-dimensionality of Motivated Psychological Health in Association with Personality Traits, Purpose in Life and Spiritual Experiences. Study among Catholic Diocesan priests in Tamil Nadu, India. Abbiamo lo studente, prima di tutto di farci dire una preghiera iniziale, poi entriamo nel merito della tesi. Prego.
God of wisdom and compassion, you have taught us to be balanced in happiness as well as in hardships. You teach us that even if we are hard-pressed on every side, we will not be crushed. We might be perplexed, but not to despair. We might be persecuted, but will not be abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body and in our ministry as priests. We pray you to be with us today, to send upon us your Holy Spirit, that every one of us who are here in this hall and all those who are connected to us in some way be inspired, will be guided and strengthened by your Spirit. We make this prayer in the most holy name of Jesus our Lord.
Amen. Bene, allora diamo la parola al candidato perché possa presentare i risultati della sua tesi, certamente molto interessanti, che ascoltiamo attenti. Prego.
Grazie. Good evening to every one of you. While fulfilling my responsibility as the Episcopal Vicar for the religious of the Archdiocese of Chennai, Mylapore in India between 2012 and 2017, I had met some young priests who were totally immersed in their pastoral ministry. Especially on Sundays, they were celebrating 5 holy masses, conducting meetings of different groups, visiting the sick, etc. At the end of the day, they were totally physically exhausted, but they also seemed happy and fulfilled in their ministry. There were also priests whom I found to be depressed, unhappy, and disillusioned in their ministry. But what surprised me most was that there were a few priests who experienced both these sets of emotions at the same time. They felt happy in their ministry, but also were disappointed. They felt fulfilled, but also were burnt out. And I used to ask myself, how is it possible for someone to feel positive feelings such as happiness and satisfaction, while simultaneously experiencing negative feelings such as unhappiness and emotional distress? That was the starting point for this study of psychological well-being of priests. What then is psychological well-being? WHO, World Health Organization, in 2001 defined psychological well-being as the state of being aware of one's abilities, functioning efficaciously, coping with the normal stresses of life, finding meaning for one's existence, and contributing to the well-being of the society. 5 dimensions of our lives. In order to attain this holistic psychological well-being, it is imperative that one possesses a balance between 2 affective dimensions, positive affect and negative affect. The balanced affect model of Norman Bradburn declared that this bidimensional nature of psychological well-being is experienced by all psychologically well persons, as these 2 opposite effects, positive and negative, exist simultaneously but independently of each other. This signifies that a person could simultaneously feel, for example, fearful and angry, afraid but daring, unhappy but also happy. As Zautra, Potter and Reich declared, most of the time, positive and negative feeling states are independent of one another. And so the question arises, is it possible for Catholic priests to experience these coexisting emotions? Professor Leslie Francis of Warwick University, United Kingdom, I'm very happy to say that I'm studying his model, the model of clergy work-related psychological health, and Professor Leslie is here with us online. I'm very happy to welcome him to be with us. We study his because he operationalized balanced affect model among the clergy of different Christian denominations and Catholic priests. He claimed that just as positive affect and negative affect could coexist in an individual, satisfaction in ministry and emotional exhaustion could also coexist in Catholic priests. Francis, Crea and Laycock in 2021, their latest work, they have written this. Francis matched positive affect with satisfaction in ministry and negative affect with emotional exhaustion in ministry, thereby formulating this new model, and he termed it, as I said, as the model of clergy work-related psychological health. Thus, as we see now in this slide, you find there the similarity between Bradburn's model and Francis' model. You have their positive effect, which is equal to satisfaction in ministry, negative effect is equal to emotional exhaustion. As a result of 30-year-long research on different aspects of clergy and priestly well-being, Professor Francis proposed that while experiencing some levels of negative feelings, stress and burnout, if a Catholic priest possesses higher levels of positive feelings, satisfaction and functions well, then that priest could be considered psychologically well. On the contrary, if negative feelings dominate over the positive aspects and is dysfunctional in his ministry, he would be deemed psychologically unwell. The methodology employed in this work. This study brings together 3 specific areas of psychological inquiry and is the interface between well-being psychology, occupational health psychology, and psychology of religion, as portrayed in slide here in front of you. In this study, we explore the psychological well-being and the occupational health of Catholic diocesan priests with a particular reference in Tamil Nadu, India. This study is a cross-sectional, explorative, comparative and correlational quantitative research design. It contains 2 parts, theoretical and empirical. The theoretical part makes use of the narrative literature review method in order to fulfill the first objective of this research, establishing the theoretical link between the balanced affect model of Bradburn and the clergy work-related psychological health model of Francis Leslie. The empirical part makes use of the quantitative analytical method to investigate the hypotheses derived from the research objectives. We go to the theoretical part. The theoretical part contains 4 chapters arranged in such a way as to progressively establish the link between the models of Bradburn and Francis. The first chapter deals with the foundational and characteristic features of Bradburn's model. The first section deals with the historical aspects of the concept of bi-dimensionality of well-being. We have gone back to the Greek philosophers such as Aristotle, who spoke of hedonistic or pleasure-centered life, and Aristotle, who spoke of eudaimonic or value-centered life. Secondly, in the Christian concept of the coexistence of happiness and suffering, especially Augustine of Hippo and Thomas Aquinas. The third section, we deal with the 20th century utilitarian philosophers' concept of social happiness, and finally in the contribution of positive psychology. The second section contains a detailed exposition of Bradburn's concept of bidimensionality, of positive affect and negative affect, the description of the affective balance scale, followed by the development of his model among other researchers. The third section deals with the correlation of psychological well-being with health, job satisfaction, and other such factors. Prior to Bradburn's intervention, psychological health care followed the pathogenic approach, which had stated that in the continuum of mental health, negative affect was at one end and positive affect at the opposite end, meaning that at any given time, people could either be sick or be well, not both at the same time. You can look at the slide there. The medical model or pathogenic model before Bradburn, you had negative affect on the left hand side and the positive affect on the other side, seeing that there can be only at two sides. You cannot be on both sides. Instead, Bradburn suggested the salutogenic approach, in which he said positive and negative affects had their own separate continuums. That means the positive affect continuum was constituted by the low positive affect and high positive affect, and the negative affect continuum had low negative affect and high negative affect. Bradburn suggested that the psychological well-being of a person should be measured considering the levels of positive and negative affects put together. This he termed as the balance between the two affects. He concluded that this balance could signify positive well-being if the level of positive affect was more than the level of negative affect. He said, the greater the excess of positive over negative affect, the higher the overall rating of psychological well-being. The second chapter deals with the psychological ill health. The first one was the psychological health, positive. Second on negative health, especially that of Catholic priests. Bradburn had stated that when the balance inclines towards higher levels of negative affective experiences, it would lead to stress, burnout, and psychological ill health. Freudenberger and Maslach, two foremost researchers of burnout, found that those who are in service professions or helping professions such as doctors, nurses, therapists, teachers, and social workers are prone to experience burnout and psychological ill health. There is a special group of service professionals who are also affected by the simultaneous presence of positive and negative aspects. They are the Catholic priests, who are actively involved in serving those under pastoral care. They too experience simultaneously the seemingly contrasting dimensions of psychological well-being, happiness and sadness, good health and ill health, well-being and burnout. Catholic priests are similar but also different from other service professionals because theirs is not merely a profession but a personal invitation, a vocational call from God to contribute to society's well-being. While the role of a Catholic priest is essentially of a spiritual nature, they are also seen as professional service providers. Their ministerial responsibilities include serving as pastors, teachers, administrators, resource persons, creative artists, and social service providers for underprivileged people. They also are concerned about managing funds and organizational issues. In the university, we know very, very clearly how funds are very important. Studies reveal that while carrying out such a responsible and dedicated service, the predominant feeling among them is happiness and satisfaction. They are also able to cope better with stressors and difficulties. Rossetti, in his nationwide study of the psychological and spiritual health of Catholic priests in the USA, found that out of 2,460 priests, 94% were happy and satisfied. However, his study showed that about 6% were not happy and 2.3%, that means 57 out of 2,460 were exhausted, burnt out and depressed. Other studies showed that clergy under 40 years of age were affected by higher than average levels of strokes, obesity, diabetes, asthma, arthritis, high blood pressure, heart attacks. In a study among Catholic priests in South India, it was found that about 16% of them were experiencing psychological ill health. This was in 2017. Our present study today, it found that 49%, that is 379 out of 761 priests were experiencing less psychological health. They were not burnt out, but they were having less psychological health. The third chapter deals with the theological, occupational and social characteristics of Christian clergy, especially that of Catholic priests. We then study the Francis CWRPH model. From now on I will just say CWRPH model, not to lengthen the words. Its similarity with Bradburn's BAM, B-A-M, and the two subscales, satisfaction in ministry, SIMS, and emotional exhaustion in ministry, SEAM, which together form the FBI. And the correlational impact of personality traits, purpose in life, and spiritual experiences on the PWB of priests. In 2004, Francis and colleagues formulated the SEAM with 11 items to test the level of exhaustion in pastoral ministry, and they formulated the SIMS with 11 items in 2005 to test the levels of satisfaction in ministry. Together, these two scales were termed as the Francis Burnout Inventory, FBI. The FBI has been used for the past 17 years in numerous research studies in combination with other well-being scales in Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland and United States of America. Here in Italy, this model has been pioneered and researched greatly by Professor Giuseppe Crea, my guide, and a close collaborator of Professor Francis Leslie. The third chapter also reviews a number of studies that explored the correlational and mediational impact of personality characteristics, extroversion, neuroticism and psychoticism, purpose in life, and the spiritual experience of Catholic priests. The fourth chapter deals with Indian Catholic diocesan priests, the sample of our empirical study. This chapter deals with the uniqueness of the cultural, theological, psychological and occupational situation of Catholic priests in India. It has been a journey of discovery for myself, as it has helped me to unearth the philosophical and psychological underpinnings of the concept of psychological well-being in India. The idea of affect balance that Bradburn spoke about in 1969 was already discussed in ancient Indian philosophy as well as Greek philosophy. For example, while the Greek hedonistic philosophy was taught by Aristippus circa 450 years before Christ, the Indian philosophical school by name Charvaka school of hedonistic happiness was taught by Brihaspati around 600 years before Christ. The concept of balance between positive affect and negative affect was also discussed in early Indian philosophical traditions such as Vedanta and Yoga. They taught that human life is a balance between sukha, meaning happiness and pleasure, and dukkha, meaning sadness and pain. And in the Buddhist tradition, as yin, positive and light aspects of life, and yang, negative and dark aspects of life. Some differences between Western and Eastern concept of well-being are also evident in our study. While Western countries constituted by an individualist cultural ethos, India is a collectivist society that gives priority to family and society before caring for oneself. This has many consequences, especially on the personality and the style of functioning of Catholic priests. Similarly, while people are sometimes typecast as extroverts, introverts, neurotics, and psychotics in the West, in India, personality characteristics such as sattva, meaning wise and calm, rajas, meaning active and driven, and tamas, meaning lethargic and passive, are seen as distinct but as well as complementary qualities of a person. The empirical part. For the empirical part of our study, we have made use of the quantitative research design, since the findings from quantitative research can be predictive, explanatory, and confirming. Francis had remarked that further empirical work is needed to establish the validity of the balanced affect model in relation to clergy burnout. Therefore, the primary objective of the study was to test empirically if the CWR-PH model of Francis could be replicated among the Indian Catholic diocesan priests. Additionally, this objective intends to explore the link and similarity between the balanced affect model of Bradburn and the CWR-PH model of Francis. Therefore, the first two research questions posed are the following. Can two distinct and negatively related dimensions of psychological well-being, namely satisfaction in ministry and emotional exhaustion, exist simultaneously in Catholic priests? Second question, is there a similarity between the BAM, Bradburn, and CWR-PH of Francis models? Meaning, if there is a positive correlation between satisfaction in ministry and positive affect, and between emotional exhaustion and negative affect? Furthermore, we also have explored whether purpose in life and spiritual experiences are able to predict increase of satisfaction in ministry and reduction in emotional exhaustion of Catholic diocesan priests. Therefore, the next research question is, can personality characteristics, purpose in life, and spiritual experiences predict satisfaction in ministry and emotional exhaustion of Indian Catholic diocesan priests? The research procedure and the sample. This study has been approved by and authorized by two research committees. Coordination Committee of Doctoral Studies, COD, of the Salesian Pontifical University, Rome, and as per the Indian government's requirement by a Institutional Review Board of Nirevagam Institute of Psychological Services, Chennai, India, on 3rd May 2019. Basing on the research questions, 8 generic and 24 specific hypotheses were formulated in order to analyze the data arrived at from the questionnaire that had 157 items in total. The sample of this doctoral research are chosen from 13 Catholic dioceses. Okay, you have to look at this map. Catholic dioceses in the state of Tamil Nadu in India. These 13 dioceses were categorized into 3 regions based on where they were located geographically. Upper, middle, and lower regions of Tamil Nadu. We used the purposive sampling method for selecting the sample from 2,240 diocesan priests who were active in their ministry. The questions were responded by 868 priests from these 13 dioceses. However, for reasons of ethicality and exclusion criteria, the final sample arrived at was 761 diocesan priests. The map you see there, and the next slide will show you how we had divided the number of the dioceses, the parishes, the priest, and the discarded responses for ethical reasons, and valid responses, and the total. We made sure that the 3 regions had equal number of priests there. As a sample, as a good sample, they should have 3 regions almost equal number. The next step was to analyze the data. After having done the normality test to determine the feasibility of the data to be analyzed and finding the reliability values with Cronbach's alpha, we employed the following psychometric tests to analyze the data: correlation analysis, independent sample t-test, ANOVA, regression analysis, mediation analysis, and confirmatory factor analysis. We used 6 different scales to measure the independent, dependent, and mediating variables that would be analyzed in this study. The formulation, validation, psychometric properties, and the use of each of these scales in various researches have been discussed in our study. Here are the scales and the specific variables they measure. We also have the data of the validity and the alpha of the original scales and the scales, the study done by us. Along with these scales, single item measures were employed to assess personal factors such as age, physical health, years of ordination completed, educational qualification, ministry-related factors such as type of ministry carried out, place of ministry, either village or city, living alone or with others, spiritually related factors such as participating in annual retreats, spending time in daily personal prayer, and self-enhancement factors such as reading habit, weekly holiday, annual holidays, and engaging in hobbies. The correlation between PWB and these demographic factors would inform us of the impact of such external factors in the experience of well-being of Catholic priests. Another important distribution is based on the number of priests who are extroverts, introverts, neurotic, emotionally exhausted, satisfied in ministry, and have high purpose in life. You can see that out of 761, you find that neurotic people who are tending towards neuroticism are positive. 200 and the number is there. I'm unable to read from here. And negative are 541, which means only a few are neurotically tending. Most are stable. And extroversion and introversion, 400 are introverts and 361 are extroverts. Psychotic, positive is 190 and negative 571. Social desirability, who tend towards putting up a good image of themselves in front of others, negative 249 and positive 512. Emotional exhaustion, you see almost equal, 379 and 382. And then we have satisfaction ministry, again almost equal, 49% and 51%. It's very interesting to find this findings in our sample. And of course positive and negative. Finally, we have purpose in life. We have again quite similar, not much difference, 356 and nearly 400 between people who are having high purpose in life. Okay, now we go to the confirming the bi-dimensionality of CWRPH model and the fifth BI. The first hypothesis of our empirical research is the most important argument of our study to explore whether the two dimensions, satisfaction ministry and emotional exhaustion, are independent, distinct, and negatively correlated in our sample of 761 diocesan priests. This signifies that we need to validate the original formulation of Francis and colleagues, prove that the two scales, SIMS and SEAM, 11 items each, perform well psychometrically if they were treated as two separate latent factors rather than as a single latent factor. For this reason, we conducted confirmatory factor analysis of the data using Jamovi 1.6 statistical software. 3 different models were suggested. We tried it. In the first model, 11 items of SIMS and 11 items SEAM were brought together to form one single latent factor, which is not what Francis did, which is the opposite. And this model showed that it was a very poor fit, didn't work out well. You'll find that in the readings there. Model 1, you must have lower chi-square, lower DF, higher CFI, higher TLI, and it should be significant. 0.01 is significant, less than 0.01. If you have all these data, then you say that this model fits. But here, the first model doesn't fit. Therefore, we separated the two. We had, as Francis had done, we had the SIM and SEAM, two separate. And we found the results were satisfactory. Not very good, only satisfactory. though they are very significant. We found the reason why. One item in seam was not understood well by the priests, the respondents, and that is item 5 of seam. I always have enthusiasm for my work. Many of the priests whom I interviewed, they understood, I always have enthusiasm, it's very good. So I should say yes. Instead, Francis had decided in his formulation, you cannot be always enthusiastic. As a good priest, you should be sometimes feeling not so enthusiastic. Therefore, it was opposite of what it was envisaged. Therefore, this question went wrong. And that's why it was, though it is satisfactory, it is not high. So, we followed what Professor Crea had done in Italy in 2019. In 2019, he removed 2 items from Francis' scale, and he used it here in Italian sample of priest, and it worked out very well. In our situation in India, we removed 1 item, and we found the model was very good. If your CFI and TLI are above 0.91, 0.90, that means your model fits very well. And the chi-square is low, DF is low, and it's very significant. Therefore, we decided that the model for India is, for this sample of Indian priests, the 3rd model with only 21 items, not 22 items. That was a discovery that we made in our work. The next step was to explore if these 2 dimensions, sims and seam, were significantly and negatively correlated. And our data, just as Francis and many other researchers have shown, showed that satisfaction and exhaustion in ministry were significantly and negatively correlated. You can see here, you see that satisfaction in ministry and emotional exhaustion, second in the left, and emotional exhaustion minus 0.373 and is significant at 0.01, and it's minus, which means it shows very well that Francis' model works very well with our sample. Similarity between Bradburn, BAM and Francis FBI. The next important hypothesis is to prove that actually Francis was imitating or was operationalizing Bradburn's. That was another important discovery we have to make, the formulation we have to make, by showing that BAM and FBI are correlated significantly, and in the direction suggested by the hypothesis, the similarity of these models can be proved. You can see here, positive effect should be same as satisfaction ministry, and negative effect should be same as emotional exhaustion. In simple terms, it is confirmed that those priests who experience positive effect must also experience satisfaction ministry, and those who experience negative effect must also experience emotional exhaustion. Thus, the similarity between Bradburn's and Francis models are proved both theoretically and empirically. The link between BAM and CWRPH models can also be confirmed by the fact that priests who experience positive effect and satisfaction ministry possess similar qualities, such as confidence, optimism, sociability, high energy, pro-social behavior, physical well-being, ability to cope with stress, flexibility. Contrarily, those who experience negative affect and emotional exhaustion share common qualities such as laziness, sadness, fear, guilt, anger, nervousness, lack of support with others, and lack of rapport with others, and excessive anxiety. Correlation between all variables, and then we did the correlation of all the variables. As I've written here, PW of a person is best demonstrated only when it associates significantly with other important aspects of their life. In our study, we explored the association that personality traits, purpose in life, and spiritual experiences shared with satisfaction and exhaustion ministry of Indian Catholic priests. So, if the scores are positive, it signifies that when levels are high in one variable, the levels of the associated variable would also be high. For example, from our data, it is shown that those priests who had high levels of extraversion had also high levels of satisfaction. On the contrary, if the scores are negative, it means that when one goes higher, the other will go down. you can look at the example here. Those priests who possess high levels of purpose in life, their level of exhaustion would be low. It will be reduced. So this diagram there, it shows you all the correlations between all the variables that we had studied. Mediational impact of purpose in life and spiritual experiences. The next part of our study was mediation analysis. By mediation, what do we mean by mediation? We mean that a third variable is able to explain and predict the relationship between two associated variables. This third variable is called as the mediating variable, since it is able to mediate and modify the already existing relationship. You can see this here. You have independent variable, dependent variable, mediator variable. You have here independent variable and dependent variable. Those two are already associated. But you use mediating variable in that association, and the mediating variable will change the relationship. Should change, or at least partially change it. That's what is called as mediation. We explored the manner in which purpose in life mediates the association between neuroticism and satisfaction in ministry. In correlation analysis, we learned that neuroticism in priests would reduce their satisfaction in ministry. When this third variable, namely purpose in life, was added to this negative association, there was a significant mediation effect. That is, the negative effect of neuroticism was partially reduced. You can see this picture now, where we have used purpose in life as a mediating variable, neuroticism and satisfaction. When there is neuroticism, you have less satisfaction. But when you use purpose in life, what happens is your neuroticism is either reduced or completely removed. Your satisfaction is improved quite a lot, and your exhaustion can be reduced. Okay, we also have the figures here. Our hypotheses indicate that purpose in life would predict and change the association between neuroticism and satisfaction in ministry. The mediation analysis of our data shows that the presence of neuroticism in priests reduces their satisfaction ministry. I am not going into details, you can read through. We also do what you call as the Sorbel test of mediation effect. All the psychologists will know that to prove that this is significant. Only when that is significant, when Sorbel's Z score is significant, thereby confirming the partial mediatory role of purpose in life. We also did the mediation analysis conducted with spiritual experiences as a mediating variable, and it indicated that spiritual experiences also mediate between all these variables, especially neuroticism, satisfaction ministry, extraversion and satisfaction ministry, and exhaustion. We will find the significance. We go to the significance. The most important part of the work is the significance and originality and implications of this study. The first significant and original aspect of the study is its contribution to theoretical framework of the balanced affect model. While Professor Francis, his contribution to the concept of balanced affect model of Bradburn was mainly empirical, there was a need for linking the two models with an in-depth theoretical framework. And in this study, our literature review, through narrative literature review, we have offered a theoretical link between the two models, and that's why our theoretical part is very huge, giving a very important theoretical framework, beginning from ancient Greek philosophy to the writings of Francis and colleagues. It is hoped that this elaborate theoretical contribution will help other researchers to explore further, both theoretically and empirically. Francis' model, the second contribution is Francis' model, which is employed in Western countries, has been for the first time employed in the Asian cultural context. We have found that this model is applicable also among Indian Catholic priests. All the hypotheses we had formulated in the study had been confirmed in our sample of 761 diocesan priests. It doesn't matter if they did not confirm, but we were lucky that all the hypotheses were confirming. Thus, it is proved that Indian Catholic priests experience simultaneously happy and sad feelings, positive and negative shades of life. Moreover, an unforeseen discovery was made that in the Indian sample, the FBI could be validated as a 21-item scale rather than as a 22-item scale because of the poor performance of item 5 of SEAM. Therefore, we understand that the validation of scales varies according to different contexts and cultures. As a corollary to the Indian validation, we suggest, that's a third contribution that we make, that Francis Burnout Inventory be changed to Francis Clergy Balanced Affect Scale. This study has brought to light that the real aim of FBI is not to measure the burnout of clergy, although it was used in the beginning for that reason, but the holistic well-being of clergy was what was measured by FBI while following the balanced affect model of Bradburn. In fact, Professor Crea, who has pioneered, as we said, of BAM in Italy, in his recent study among Catholic priests in Italy, had used the title Testing the Balanced Affect Model rather than measuring the burnout of clergy. This is an already Professor Francis and his researchers have come to this level. An added motivation for changing the name is to extend the focus of the scale, of Francis scale, to enhancing the positive aspects of priest's ministry rather than concentrating on burnout. The next implication is regarding the impact of purpose in life and spiritual experiences on psychological well-being. Purpose in life gives meaning to a priest's life and his ministry, while spiritual experiences connect him to the divine and strengthen him in moments of difficulty. Our study has confirmed that purpose in life and spiritual experiences are two powerful mediators that enhance the well-being of Catholic diocesan priests. This indicates that those Indian priests who possess high levels of purpose in life are satisfied in their ministry and they have less emotional exhaustion. Similarly, priests rich in spiritual experiences are also satisfied in their ministry and their emotional exhaustion is reduced. The implication here is that if priests are helped to have a strong purpose in life and enjoy more personal prayer experiences, they could be happy in their ministry. Just to tell you aside, we have used spirituality not as a spirituality of going for prayer experience, prayer moments like Mass, Lodi, meditation. Not only that, along with that, having a holistic spiritual vision of the whole world, of the cosmos, of the people, of the relationships. That's the spirituality we are talking about. However, a further learning we gained from this study is that while higher levels of purpose in life can reduce emotional exhaustion greatly, spiritual experiences are not so effective in reducing emotional exhaustion. A very interesting discovery. This shows that prayer experiences are effective only to a certain extent in reducing emotional exhaustion. This implies that priests should be trained to focus their attention on the purpose of their vocation and the effectiveness of their pastoral ministry. It is said that purpose in life is like a magnet in front of iron particles. Those iron particles that lie dispersed here and there would all be gathered together by the magnetic force and come to the center of the magnet. Hence, formation programs for young priests and formees must focus on holistic priestly formation that includes purpose in life as an integral and aspect of 4 pillars highlighted by Pope John Paul II in Pastoris Dabo Vobis in 1992, namely human, intellectual, pastoral and spiritual formation. We also use demographic factors of our sample of priests that offer some interesting insights as they greatly impact the PWB of priests in our study. I have not taken all the demographic, only 3 of them because there's lack of time. The first one we consider is the distribution according to age. You can see there, we see that the priests aged between 36 and 40 years constitute the biggest group, namely 31%, that is 233 of the sample. An ANOVA test was conducted on the difference between the mean of this group of priests that indicated that those aged below 35 group of priests who are most prone to experience neuroticism and emotional exhaustion. So this group of priests is the best example of those who experience the bi-dimensionality of positive and negative dimensions simultaneously. However, our study shows that this same group of priests have high levels of purpose in life and satisfaction ministry. Therefore, they also possess psychological resources to overcome their emotional exhaustion. A corresponding result is a group of priests between 56 and 65 years. Many of us in this group, in this hall, are in between those years, 56 and 65 years. There are 112 of them in our sample, 15%. They manifest higher levels of satisfaction, purpose in life, and spiritual experiences. This result confirms the finding of Francis and colleagues that as clergy advance in age, they become more satisfied, less exhausted, at peace with themselves, and become settled in their spiritual life. A practical implication of this finding is that young priests could be made to understand that as they grow older, they too would arrive at this state of maturity. To enhance the well-being of the younger group of priests, periodic interactions between these two age groups could be conducted. The second factor of interest is here at Salesian Pontifical University is because of the distribution according to the educational qualification. Slide 20, you find here. Almost half of the priests, 45.9%, have a postgraduate degree education, while almost 2/5 of them have a bachelor's degree. A good number of priests, 92 of them, that is 12%, have a doctoral degree of education among 761, and a mere 34 who only had a school education had lowest qualification, which is those who completed the highest level of education are the ones found to be with high levels of purpose in life. Those who finished doctorate, you can feel very happy. This reflects the general cultural ethos in India, where higher education has a very important place. And additional information, hope you don't think I am boasting about Salesians, it's regarding Salesians in the same region of Tamil Nadu. Out of 650 Salesians in Chennai and Trichy provinces, about 80 of them have doctoral degree in various disciplines. The third variable that would interest us, as most of us are priests, concerns those who engage in personal prayer. It is shown that on a daily basis, 38% of diocesan priests spend 30 minutes, 23% pray 15 minutes, while 13% of the priests allot 45 minutes, and another 13% allot 60 minutes in prayer. About 14% of them do not allot time for personal prayer on a daily basis. Our findings show that those who spend 60 minutes every day for personal prayer are those with higher levels of purpose in life and spiritual experiences. Again, very interesting and I think it's very realistic as well. Our research in Indian context has given us some very interesting insights. Francis had declared that extrovert priests enjoy more satisfaction in ministry than introvert priests. One important reason for this argument is that while extroverts, they draw energy for their well-being from external sources such as support from others, happy atmosphere, etc. Introverts draw their well-being energy from inside of themselves. While this is a good quality at normal times, when people go through crisis and stress, the introverts lack the capacity to draw energy from the outside. These are studies done by Francis and his colleagues all these years. They've all been come true. Hence, it's also true in our study. Hence, introverts tend to close themselves up, and so, without external help, they tend to despair and collapse quickly. In our study, it proved that extroverts are more satisfied in their ministry, as Francis had declared. But there are more introverts in Indian sample than extroverts. In India, we see a diffused extraversion, as I have given this term, diffused extraversion phenomenon, as Indian cultural ethos is collectivist by nature, and they are more comfortable in intra-group interactions. Indians tend to give more importance to society's rules and others' viewpoints rather than their individual well-being. Individual identity gives way to collective identity. Hence, their satisfaction ministry is colored by these cultural details. And that's the reason why you will find Indian priests have no timetable for their work. They'll be working 24 hours. Then they keep working. There's no time set. Our study of balanced affect model among Indian priests is relevant, since the sense of balance that Bradburn proposed is a fundamental notion in Indian philosophy. Balance can be loosely translated as sama in Sanskrit. And in Tamil, the word is more accurate. Sama nilai would mean not merely would mean the state of balance. It concerns with not merely the balance of individual personality and interaction with people, but also with the sense of balance with the whole cosmos, the plants, animals, and people. Buddhist philosophy holds that balance is the combination of yin and yang. Yin represents negative, dark aspects of life, and yang represents the positive and bright aspects. Similarly, Indian philosophy holds that balance is the right combination of sukha, effectively happiness, and dukkha, sadness. In their essence, these two are inseparable, and hence a person cannot hope to experience 100% happiness at any time. Indian philosophy teaches that. So people must learn to accept the good with the bad, the praise with the blame, and happiness with sorrow. Enhancing affect balance among Catholic priests. I will just say in very short this part. The foremost benefit in studying the model, as Francis wanted, is for continued formation of priests, especially young priests. They need to be aware that while fulfilling pastoral ministry, they would experience both satisfactory ministry and emotional exhaustion. They could function efficaciously if they were to possess high levels of satisfaction ministry and learn to reduce the levels of emotional exhaustion. I have given a symbol here, you can see it as we go along. Catholic priests can be compared to a seesaw on which children play in the park. The principle behind this apparatus is that, guided by a central fulcrum, when one end is on top, the other end has to be down. This describes the dynamic process of the interplay of satisfaction ministry and emotional exhaustion. It explains that when satisfaction ministry is high, emotional exhaustion would be low. And alternately, when emotional exhaustion is high, satisfaction ministry would be low. Imagine you sitting on two opposite ends, you yourself, both here and there. This symbol signifies that an individual is actively involved in deciding which of the two dimensions he needs to intervene. Self-awareness of whether he is tending towards satisfaction or exhaustion and help in actively directing and deciding his psychological well-being. Caring for the carers is an important aspect of our study. This signifies guiding and accompanying priests to live their commitment and exercise their ministry in the best possible manner. Formators and diocesan authorities have an important role to play. If these following aspects of priestly formation are guaranteed, their affect balance could be enhanced. Peer interactive formation programs, group interaction for personal growth, periodic psychological testing of candidates and formees, psychosexual ministerial training, prayer experiences, adequate community living, academic excellence, and boot camp experiences with challenged persons. Evaluative perspectives. At this juncture, there are certain clarification questions we raise in order to better understand the balance effect model and to enable further research studies of CWRPH. I know I am in front of Professor Francis and Professor Crea, and I am suggesting some important clarifications. Optimum level of balance that a person needs. Given the fact that 100% satisfaction is opposed to 0% exhaustion is impossible to achieve, what would be the optimum levels needed for someone to be happy, psychologically healthy, and functional in ministry? What would be optimum or ideal level of the balance between satisfaction and exhaustion? Would it be 70% satisfaction and 30% exhaustion? Or 60% satisfaction and 40% exhaustion? Until what level of exhaustion can a person continue to function normally? Second point, affect balance could be misunderstood, misused, and masked by some people. If a person with 60% of satisfaction and 40% of exhaustion is able to function normally, will not that 40% of exhaustion affect him finally in such a way that he becomes totally dysfunctional, burnt out, or sick? There are indeed quite a few priests whom I know, and many of us know, who are apparently functioning very well, but are addicted to drinking, smoking, sex, money, and power, and affected by personality disorders. I'm not giving you details, there are many more in my work, in my study. Therefore, it becomes expedient to keep track of the levels of satisfaction and emotional exhaustion. The third point, affect balance could mask negative qualities. A question arises, Is it possible for a person to live happily with certain negative qualities, masquerading them with other good qualities because the good qualities outweigh the bad ones? For example, a priest who is functioning very well as a headmaster, is functioning very well, organizing very well, is a wonderful organizer, but he has got some bad habits. What happens to him? Is it possible for such priests to be happy, to live hiding their flaws under the cover of balance until they break down completely? The last point of this clarifications. Can satisfaction in ministry be an impediment? Another point of discussion that I have raised here, that whether satisfaction in ministry could itself become an impediment for psychological well-being. Greek psychological concepts of hedonia and eudaimonia teach that positive affective feelings are hedonic in nature and are therefore self-gratifying, characterized by momentary emotional gratification. Some priests can work only for satisfaction. They can work towards that, attaching over-importance to satisfaction. That could be detrimental. It is abundantly clear that Bradburn's concept of balance is praiseworthy, since his model predicted that psychological well-being is a combination of the light and the dark, the happy and the sad, the highs and the lows, signifying that only when a person who embraces both these aspects of life can be grounded. Therefore, certain levels of negative affect are normal in a person who is psychologically well. Some delimitations of my work we like to mention here are the enhancement of the research, first of all. Firstly, this study is indeed a vast project that involved comparing and linking two models, both theoretically and empirically, and then studying the correlational mediational impact of three different variables. While it was a satisfying experience for me, the vastness of the project demanded enormous energy, time, and academic resources. The second delimitation is the choice of scales we have used. The psychometric properties of the affect balance scale and the EPQRA are weak in our sample of priests, though they are not so weak in other samples. Nevertheless, we have used these scales for our quantitative analysis since they are essential to study the two models that we have taken up for the study. Conclusion. The study of the concept of balance and equilibrium has led us through an inspiring journey of discovery. It has fueled our desire to continue to research and apply this model in the Indian context, as well as to do comparative studies between Western and Eastern perspective of balanced affect. This study gives us confidence that it is possible for psychologically well Catholic priests to manifest a balance between positive feelings and negative feelings, between satisfaction in ministry and emotional exhaustion in ministry. Neither the comfortable, easy and pleasurable aspects of life, nor the negative aspects, challenges and healing health should disturb a well-matured priest in striving for personal growth, as well as to enable other priests to experience psychological well-being that is liberating and life-enhancing. As Mihaly said, the best moments in our lives, the best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. I wish that all of us priests find meaning for our existence and contribute to the well-being of the society. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your exposition, very clear. Ora dobbiamo fare anche noi un po' di balance perché abbiamo un po' più di tempo, anche molto più tempo del solito, e quindi dobbiamo chiedere ai professori un po' di sacrificio nella loro valutazione. Diamo la parola al professor Crea, che è stato il moderatore della tesi. Prego.
Bene, qualche parola di introduzione. I will try to speak in Italian and a little bit in English, but with my poor English. E soprattutto perché ci sono tre punti che evidenzio di questo lavoro. Anzitutto l'uso appropriato di una metodologia di indagine che ha consentito allo studente di effettuare studi accurati nell'ambito di una problematica psicologica specifica, legati alla tematica trattata. La conoscenza della letteratura, ben documentata, relativamente aggiornata, riferita alle diverse interpretazioni del tema trattato, questo gli ha permesso di approfondire nei diversi capitoli il proprio argomento, a partire dall'osservazione dei vissuti dei sacerdoti impegnati nel lavoro pastorale, in un contesto culturale specifico. E terzo, l'attenzione agli aspetti di indagine che potessero essere utili e utilizzabili nell'ambito psicoeducativo, che è un po' il filo conduttore di tutto il lavoro. Questo approccio è apprezzabile perché conferisce una tonalità formativa al tema, pur problematico in sé. Ciò testimonia la sua capacità di confrontare dialogicamente i diversi approcci in un'ottica interdisciplinare. Concludo con un'osservazione rispetto all'originalità già evidenziata nella presentazione, che sta proprio nell'aver saputo mettere insieme alcuni aspetti dello stress lavorativo applicati a un contesto specifico, che è quello della vita pastorale, in un ambiente culturale specifico, l'India, e elaborando in maniera, dovrei dire con una parola un po' particolare, in modo processuale, quindi in uno sviluppo progressivo, il costrutto di fondo, che è quello che fa riferimento a un benessere dove vengono bilanciati gli affetti, come tu hai ben sottolineato. Scelgo tra le mie domande, anche per lasciare spazio ai colleghi per il dibattito, qualche interrogativo che può essere utile anche per la discussione. Casomai scelgo proprio una delle tematiche che forse nella tua presentazione è stata presente, ma sullo sfondo. Del resto le origini di tutto questo lavoro affonda le radici in una autrice, la Maslach, di cui hai ampiamente nel tuo lavoro approfondito le tematiche, e dove metti in evidenza le critiche e la rilevanza del modello della Maslach. Leggo, senza andare nel testo. The dimension of personal accomplishment is reverse coded in Mother Bernard inventory, which is opposed by others claiming that it is better to assess lack of efficacy directly. It means that low scores on positive affect, happiness, does not reflect negative affect, sadness, meaning that the reverse self-efficacy scores need not to be an accurate indicator of burnout. Allora la mia domanda è, ma dal tuo lavoro, tenendo presente che queste sono un po' le radici da cui poi c'è stato tutto il cammino dell'evoluzione del costrutto sul burnout legato agli affetti bilanciati, secondo te il lavoro finale che hai anche nella conclusione denominato in maniera diversa, non più burnout ma affetti bilanciati, è stato un lavoro in cui hai reversed la scala, quindi c'è una reverse nel senso che invece di essere negativo è positivo la soddisfazione, oppure c'è una correlazione negativa tra le due scale. Quindi il titolo del tuo lavoro è la bidimensionalità. Le due dimensioni sono indipendenti e sono anche correlate tra di loro? A te la parola.
Yes, thank you, Professor. This is a very important part of our study, is the negative correlation between the two dimensions. Only when these two are negatively correlated, which means satisfaction in ministry is different from emotional exhaustion. Though they are correlated, which means according to scientifically or psychometrically, the higher the negative correlation, 0.50, 0.60, 0.70, then you say that they are negatively correlated, which means they are different, not there. If they were low correlations of 0.10, 0.20, It just shows that they are not actually negatively correlated. They both are the same, which goes against what Francis Leslie and the model speaks about.
Ok. Una seconda domanda l'attingo dal lavoro di ricerca. Hai introdotto le variabili di mediazione e ha anche specificato l'effetto che possono avere diretto o indiretto tra variabile indipendente e variabile dipendente. Ma quando poi vai nello specifico, e faccio riferimento a tutta la sezione di analisi della mediazione, metti in evidenza che la mediazione del peers e la mediazione della spiritual experience risulta essere significativa e parziale tra i fattori di personalità e il burnout. Allora la mia domanda è questa. Attingo dalla parte statistica e poi ti chiedo che risonanza ha nel campo psicoeducativo. Quindi che impatto educativo hanno secondo te queste dimensioni che di mediazione vuol dire di disturbo, ma che possono influenzare il modo di gestire lo stress lavorativo per i sacerdoti?
Benissimo, grazie. Questa domanda è molto importante. I have to answer this because I didn't have the time to say it in my work. In mediation, there are two types of mediation, total mediation and partial mediation. When you say total mediation, it means that we said neuroticism and satisfaction ministry. If there is, let's take another example, neuroticism and emotional exhaustion. Say for example, if somebody is neurotic, he would be also emotionally exhausted. So what is the role of purpose in life in that person? So the role of purpose in life is to change. Even though a person is neurotic is already given, it's an independent variable. He is already neurotic, you can't change that. You can only change the dependent variable, which is the emotional exhaustion. So, if a person is neurotic and he is exhausted, how will purpose in life help? So this is where we say mediation works. Mediation works in such a way, if that exhaustion is completely removed by mediation, by purpose in life, it is called as complete mediation or total mediation. But if, for example, as mediation is introduced, purpose in life introduced, there is still some aspect of neuroticism is still there, and exhaustion is still there, which means then we can say it is partial mediation. It is not completely removed the neuroticism, bad effects of neuroticism. It is still there, but at least what the mediation does here is to partially reduce it. Therefore, as a professor asked me, how is it going to help you in psychoeducative method? You can tell the priest, even if you are neurotic, even if you have certain neurotic qualities within you, don't worry, you don't have to worry about being exhausted, because if you work on your purpose in life, if you increase it, you enhance it, you can reduce your exhaustion.
Thank you very much.
Bene, allora diamo la parola alla professoressa Cinzia Mezzani. Prego.
Giuseppe, complimenti, io parlo in italiano. Complimenti per il lavoro, veramente un grosso lavoro, l'ho letto con fatica e con piacere, no? Quindi l'equilibrio, tutte e due le cose. Ho applicato direttamente il modello. Ottima la ricerca bibliografica, la parte teorica molto ampia, la parte empirica molto dettagliata, accurata. Grazie del ripasso di statistica che mi ha fatto fare, perché hai illustrato via via i passi, li ha motivati, e i risultati sono stati molto interessanti. Sarebbe stato bello approfondire anche gli aspetti educativi, formativi che vengono fuori, ma non potevi fare 3 dottorati perché già 2 li hai fatti, bastano questi. Vi faccio solo 2 domande brevi. Erano di più, ma ne faccio 2. Una riguarda l'analisi che tu hai fatto della desiderabilità sociale.
Sì.
Sì. Tu hai detto, leggo a pagina 360, hai detto che sacerdoti che, così lo trovi?
Sì, lo trovo.
Sì, che i sacerdoti che hanno riportato un alto livello di soddisfazione sono quelli anche che probabilmente hanno un alto livello di desiderabilità sociale.
Sì.
E al contrario che invece si è
Grazie.
riportato di essere
Grazie per questa domanda.
Sì.
Io non avevo tempo per spiegare questo.
Probabilmente hanno risposto come realmente si sentono.
Sì, grazie.
Allora, se stiamo con questo abbiamo falsato tutta la ricerca, perché noi tutto... Ti chiedo, come secondo te si può tenere a bada questa variabile? Perché c'è questa variabile.
Sì.
Come l'hai tenuta presente o, se non l'hai fatto, come si potrebbe tenere a bada dal punto di vista statistico?
Grazie per questa domanda. Una domanda era molto importante quando facevo la ricerca, anche con il professor Crea, con altri ricercatori. When you have a very high social desirability, which is very high in our Indian sample, what is social desirability? A person, all of us, want to look the best of ourselves in front of others. We put up a good picture of ourselves, and it happens with everybody. And that happens also in our sample, but a great number, 540 people, which means, actually speaking, the research would tell you that if there are so many people who are socially desirable, you will have to redo your data. You have to find a data which is not so many socially desirable people. I understand that. And that's why I explained to you the cultural ethos of India. India is a country where people are not thinking about themselves. They're thinking about other people. They want to see that other people are happy. So they work many hours, they forgive people, they go here, they go there, everything they do. And they also want to be, I'll come to one more point, they want to do the best for everyone. Second one, priests are considered next to gods. I'm saying gods, okay, because Hindu culture. Priests are very important. The status of priests are very high in India. So priests cannot be low. They cannot be considered to be low. Therefore, priests would naturally, like I would as a priest, along with all my function as a priest, I would also feel like a star being a priest. It happens in Indian culture. I told you there are priests celebrating 5-6 masses a day. They would be doing all kinds of work. It's because of that. So, because of the fact that people consider them, it's also comes from Hindu culture, where I'm sure my Indian confreres would agree. In the Indian strata of the society, the Brahmins, the priests are the highest people, and they are considered to be till today as if they are the number one people, and which we are trying to say no, it's not the case, it's not true, but it is the cultural ethos that's come from 3,000 years ago, which we try very difficult to remove it. So that's what we see today, is that the remnants of that attitude that we have. We have to work against that. Therefore, we work against it. It's a sample that I have to work on it because of the whole model, the whole idea. It's not just the sample alone. We are trying to prove the model right, make sure that the model works in another culture, and that's the reason why, along with this social desirability issue, we use the sample with social desirability high values. We still used it for our work.
Sì, quindi questo è chiaro che riguarda la cultura indiana. Mi chiedevo dal punto di vista statistico come puoi moderare.
Sì, infatti, sì, grazie. Infatti abbiamo fatto un normality test.
E risulta normale?
Sì, sì, io ho fatto una spiegazione come abbiamo fatto normale. Perché abbiamo fatto, abbiamo spostato con log 10 procedure to change that. That's the only way we could do that. There's no other way.
Quindi questo è il modo con cui l'hai cercato di compensare. Perché questa affermazione è rischiosa, non da scrivere di nuovo, perché sennò tutto si invalida, almeno dal mio punto di vista.
Sì.
Rispetto alla tua proposta di cambiare il nome al questionario del professor Francis, lui è d'accordo?
Per Crea?
Abbiamo qui la diretta.
Del resto questa è perciò dico che fa parte dell'originalità del lavoro, perché poi la ricerca permette ai ricercatori di far evolvere quello che era il costrutto iniziale, ma anche non solo il titolo, perché il titolo si riferisce a un modo diverso di vedere alla problematica dal punto di vista esistenziale, dovremmo dire, quindi la capacità di bilanciare un po' la risposta efficace allo stress.
Quindi lo sapremo, lo scopriremo.
Io ho spiegato che il professor Francis ha utilizzato prima Muscle Burnout Inventory, MBI, per tante ricerche. Per questo lui ha utilizzato prima. So after that he changed it to many other. So in the recent past, from 2017, there are at least 5 articles in which balance affect model is there. I have quoted in my work. So that's why I have said I took the liberty for 2 reasons. One is because they have used it themselves. Secondly, the meaning of the whole idea of balance effect comes out very well from the question, from the scale, rather than burnout itself. Maybe Professor Francis could say something.
Un'ultima cosa, visto che siamo nell'Università Salesiana e ci teniamo ai giovani. Ho visto che i giovani sacerdoti sono quelli che stanno peggio.
Sì.
Ecco, allora come si possono aiutare?
Bene, ho detto che loro hanno anche le risorse.
Meno male.
They also have the resources. Their spiritual experiences, purpose in life, satisfying ministry are also quite high. No, not highest, but quite high. So what we could do is to make them become aware of the fact that you have the possibility of both of them. So as I have written there in my work, many programs can be conducted, ask them to meet together. Having only seminars and workshop doesn't work. More especially practical experiences, being with people, understanding the aspect that people are suffering. So those things will help young priests to know. And of course I said about prayer experience and purpose in life. From my study and from my personal point of view, prayer experiences are very important. They help you very much, but if they go along with your focus. If you are focused, if your purpose in life is very strong. Most people who are actually here, their purpose in life is so strong, that's why they reach certain level. Even if their prayer life is, they help with each other.
Quindi aiutarli anche a prendere atto quando cominciano a lavorare che si può essere stanchi, anche se siete dei bravi sacerdoti, si può permettere questo, quindi sì. Questo credo che possa essere protettivo e preventivo. Va bene così.
Grazie.
Bene, professor Formella, prego, a lei la parola.
Grazie della parola perché ho occasione di poter togliere la mascherina. Come faccio la battuta prima all'ultima osservazione? Secondo me, questo sarebbe anche da ricercare, quei sacerdoti della nostra età stanno meglio perché quella parte che stava male già uscita e così statisticamente cambia la data, i risultati sono diversi. Grazie della parola, certamente mi associo alla valutazione del lavoro eccellente che il candidato ha fatto. Potevamo discutere prima, potevamo vedersi anche in certe parti discutendo insieme mentre scrivevi il lavoro, che certamente salto tutta la parte che si può trovare poi nella descrizione. Ho preparato alcune domande, ma vedo che sono ultimo, allora tutti aspettano che quando si conclude comunque le faccio, alcune di queste, con una prospettiva psicoeducativa, perché è questo che interessa a me in modo particolare, e credo che qualcuno chiamando psicoeducazione anche la formazione per i sacerdoti, ma ci possiamo trovare dentro. Capitolo più originale per me è il capitolo terzo. Mi permetto di dirlo perché è un contributo che dà una possibilità di vedere alcune cose sia dal punto di vista concettuale, sia dal punto di vista poi applicativo che vengono riprese nella ricerca. E quello che volevo chiederti, quando nella pagina 211 cerchi di confrontare due strumenti,
Sì.
Peel's Purpose in Life e quel strumento di professor Francis Leslie, che certamente, secondo me, mettono anche in paragone due concetti, spirituality e psychological health, no?
Sì.
Allora, la domanda è questa. Tu mi conosci e sai che faccio le domande un po' complicate. Succede che alcuni, non pochi, sacerdoti, che hanno basso livello di salute psicologica, si riferiscono, fuggono, questa è la mia interpretazione, nella cosiddetta spiritualità, specialmente quella misurabile tramite i minuti fatti di preghiera. Allora, non è così che scatta un meccanismo di difesa, in diversi casi di malessere, che cerco di aiuto da qualcuno al di fuori perché non ho coraggio di aiutare me stesso?
Sì, per questo ho detto che Purpose in Life è più forte di esperienze spirituali. Quindi anche nel campione, nel nostro campione è così. Although spiritual experiences have their mediational effect, their effect, if you see in our work, the effect of mediation through spiritual experiences is lower than the effect by purpose in life. So very often it happens, as Professor Formula says, that we could escape saying that I am praying, I am in the church, I am a person who is very spiritual, and not actually work, do something to, and we are very aware, we also Indian priests are here, so many of us, we are very aware that our work, our commitment to our ministry is very, very important. It has no sense, our spirituality has no sense if we are not actually concentrating on our work.
Certamente sono d'accordo con questa tua interpretazione, perché facendo riferimento a questa categoria più di rischio, cioè i sacerdoti giovani, io almeno lì, anche dopo il tuo lavoro, ma anche prima, vedo due categorie dei sacerdoti giovani. Prima categoria è quelli che rischiano cosiddetto attivismo, e io appartenevo a loro. E poi in qualche modo si salvano, tornando all'approfondimento, perché questo veramente purpose of life entra come una specie di spiritualità, non è solo un concetto assolutamente privo, no?
Sì,
spiritualità,
sì,
che
bravo.
può sostituire, non
Grazie.
solo mediare. Per me, ho dal tuo lavoro anche compreso che potrebbe in certo senso sostituire.
Bene.
Ma poi c'è altra categoria, quella che negli ultimi anni, statistiche della Chiesa lo dicono, sta uscendo una marea di sacerdoti giovani, perché probabilmente scappando nella cosiddetta spiritualità non trovano soddisfazione, allora lasciano, no? Rimane una parte di cosiddetti, forse non uso questa parola, quelli che si appiccicano alla spiritualità e rimangono, e certamente fanno grande numero che forse stanno con la preghiera a 3 ore e di più, ma poi fanno quasi niente nella vita del servizio, né? C'è il rischio anche in questo che ho osservato.
Sì, prima di rispondere a questa domanda vorrei dire che io secondo me mi penso che in inglese I believe that both prayer and purpose in life are important. Whatever we talk about prayer, that they can escape, but prayer is a very important part of our experience. Therefore, without prayer, you can't have your purpose in life. As you said correctly, it contains also, your prayer life also contains your purpose in life. And as priests, we are, the first thing that we have is our connection with the Almighty, God. And for that, our spirituality helps. Therefore, when I talk about purpose in life, from this sample as higher, it doesn't mean that we negate spiritual experiences. Spiritual experiences are as important as purpose in life, because both together they go hand in hand in making a person's life meaningful.
But sometimes it will be possible to ask us what does it mean prayers, no? Because
Yes.
my work, my studying, my teaching is kind of prayers or no?
In fact, I had the option, Professor. I had the option to choose a scale that was dealing only with prayer, dealing as a priestly, spiritual well-being of priests. There was a scale from Germany which gave everything about Mass, praying the Lodi, meditation and all that, along with other things. I desisted, I didn't take that. I took this scale which talks about a holistic spirituality.
Yeah, exactly.
Because diocesan priests by nature are supposed to do many activities. They are conducting Mass, they are doing lots of work as parish priests. Therefore, if they were to be happy about filling that questionnaire, it go against the idea of spirituality that we have. That's why I took this.
I think some religious priests too have a lot of activity. Ok, salto altre domande. Ultima. Nel capitolo sesto, pagina 333, Free Fall, stai affrontando con titolo Differences between priests based on educational qualification.
Yeah.
Questo è molto interessante perché dalla ricerca è uscito, e lo sottolinei, che probabilmente chi ha livello di istruzione più alto vive più consapevolmente. Per esempio dottorato, e qui una battuta, ora ho capito perché stai facendo dottorato. Ma certamente anche qui si presuppone che dovrebbe avere anche più alto livello di benessere psicologico, no? Perché la consapevolezza è correlata col benessere psicologico.
Sì.
Allora, perché nei tempi di oggi diversi sacerdoti corrono di avere titoli, e non solo uno? Molti studiano per studiare e raccolgono diversi diplomi, ma quando li conosciamo non sempre stanno bene, anzi, più titoli hanno, meno Come spiegheresti questo?
Okay. First of all, by this question you are sure that you are Professor of Education. Thank you for telling us that. I said in Indian situation, education is very important. Higher education is very important. That's why we have the master's degree alone 349 out of 761, and bachelor's degree 286. So everybody wants to study, and it also, when I talk about doctorate leading to the higher part, they are also satisfied. They are also satisfied in their life. They are also happy. So it's not that people are running away from, not that those who are educated are going to be bad. It's not that. It's some people, they study for the sake of studying alone. We believe that you study for the sake of, for doing, applying it somewhere, making your life meaningful. As I said in my last line, that all of us find meaning in what we do and we contribute to the society. That should be the reason.
Sono d'accordissimo con te. Io credo che qui c'è anche una cosa linguistica, perché in inglese noi usiamo la parola education, quando in italiano utilizziamo istruzione, no? Perché sicuramente titolo a diplomi non sempre corrisponde con educazione, no? Qui un pochino, questo non riguarda solo sacerdoti, ma anche tanti altri. Certamente potrebbe essere qualcosa nella ricerca del benessere che viene soddisfatto con il possedere titoli, diplomi, ma non necessariamente poi rispecchia con autoeducazione, con livello di vita, con purpose of life, non quello che dimostra.
Sì.
Sono soddisfatto tantissimo del tuo lavoro e mi sono permesso fare le domande così un po' semplici con le battute perché sono ultimo. Grazie.
Bene, grazie, ringrazio i professori anche perché hanno contenuto il tempo del loro contributo, della discussione. Siccome rettore teologo, da questo punto di vista trovavo stimolante questa cosa sulla spiritualità, no? Perché naturalmente la tradizione spirituale ha elaborato criteri molto sottili anche per distinguere una vera esperienza spirituale da una fasulla esperienza spirituale, da quando la preghiera diventa fuga, eccetera. Forse ci sono già degli studi in questo ambito, ma sarebbe molto interessante diciamo, confrontare dal punto di vista della ricerca psicologica e quella teologica spirituale quali sono i criteri, caratteristiche che permettono di parlare di un'autentica esperienza spirituale che non sia fuga, ma sia veramente un incontro con un'alterità che genera un cambiamento che il soggetto non può generare da se stesso. Ma questo lo lasciamo per il post-dottorato e per altri temi. Bene, penso abbiamo collegato con noi online il professor Sensislesny.
Sì.
Professor Sensislesny, if you want to give some contributors to our discussion, we are happy to hear you.
Before he speaks, I
Yes.
am very fortunate to study this model, and very few people have pioneered it in different countries, in Australia, New Zealand, and in Italy, Professor Crea. I'm very happy that he gave me time. I met him once when I went there, and he explained to me very well about this model, and he supplied me with the material to study. And I'm able to now use it in Asian context for the first time, in Indian context. So I feel very fortunate. Thank you, Professor.
Professor.
Professor Francis, your words.
Oh, thank you. And first let me say appreciation for inviting me to come to Rome today and to come once again to your university. I appreciate that invitation. But then, secondly, to say thank you to Father Joseph for his presentation, for the work behind that presentation that is invested in something that is really very important to me and important to the collaborations with which I work. And a thank you too to Father Giuseppe for his steering of that project. I've not, of course, read the dissertation, and I'm not going to spring any questions on Father Joseph. But what I'd like to do is to simply summarise what I think I've heard as 5 significant and important contributions to knowledge that Father Joseph has made in undertaking this piece of work. The first contribution I understand to be the theoretical elaboration that he's invested in broadening the underpinning of the theory of balanced affect, and to have done that from his distinctive cultural background and from his distinctive educational background. That theoretical underpinning is important. And the second original contribution to knowledge I've heard has been the empirical contribution, and that's come in a number of different ways. To have lined up the FBI alongside the original Blackboard instrument is inspirational. It's good to have the data that supports the connection between those two. It's been good to see the way in which the independence, if that's the right word to use, of positive affect and negative affect has been held up in the various analyses undertaken. And instructive to see the way in which what was a 22-item instrument has lost one of its items in order to maintain that balance. So the second contribution, empirical confirmation and added to knowledge. The third contribution that I see is that Father Joseph has taken this work into a different cultural context. Psychological theories are so vulnerable to cultural context and so important that they should be tested in diverse contexts. An important contribution to knowledge. The fourth contribution to knowledge that I've gathered from today's presentation has been the implications of research for the process of priesthood formation. By taking into account the psychological theory of purpose and love, alongside the spiritual theories of prayer and spirituality, I think Father Joseph has provided some further empirical information that says that priesthood formation is in the hands both of the priestly work and also psychological work. Investing psychological insights and working information may lead to a stronger priesthood. And the fifth contribution to knowledge I'd like to applaud is the way in which he's teased my own conceptualization of burnout and suggested reformulation of talking about positive psychological well-being. I began my work 30 years ago, and I began it with NASDAQ burnout. I began in an environment in which psychology was concerned with exploring the sickness, the backside. During my career, I moved into the world of positive psychology, and I welcomed the idea of turning my research the other way around, to speak of the world of positive psychology, where I think it has a much warmer reception in today's environment. So thank you, Father Joseph, for stimulating my thought and for offering those 5 original contributions to knowledge, which in my world is a very good sign of what qualifies doctoral work. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I would like to just add one word to Professor. Professor Francis, we have built on what you have constructed in the beginning. You had worked on burnout. I have read all your works on Maslach's research, and then how you transformed and you evolved to positive psychology and now to balanced affect model. You have changed according to the times and according to the way the world is changing. We have learned from that. I am very happy that I could collaborate with you in the future, also in another context. Thank you very much, Professor.
Bene, ora la commissione si ritira per dare la valutazione di questo dottorato.
என்னது நத்திங் டூயிங் அதனால தான் அப்படி அவங்க பிடிச்சி
ஸ்டடி கேம்ப்
உங்களெல்லாம் இப்போது ஃபோட்டோவில் போட்டால் தான் வேலைக்கு ஆகுங்க.
படத்தை அங்கே காட்டுங்க டைட்டில் போட வந்துட்டாங்க.
Ecco, arriviamo a un momento solenne, che è quello della proclamazione, la rapidità con cui la Commissione ha maturato il suo giudizio dice facilmente, come facile comprendere, l'apprezzamento. Per l'autorità a noi concessa dal Sommo Pontefice e dal Reverendissimo Gran Cancelliere dell'Università Pontificia Salesiana, a norma delle Costituzioni Apostoliche e degli Statuti dell'Università, proclamiamo Joseph Jeyaraj Swaminathan, dottore in psicologia con la menzione summa cum laude. Scrivono le Costituzioni Apostoliche e gli Statuti dell'Università, sarà insignito del titolo di dottore e fornito di diploma quando avrà stampato almeno un estratto della dissertazione e consegnato a questa università le copie prescritte. Data a Roma, martedì 8 febbraio 2020. Se vuoi dire, prego.
Sarebbe un po' lungo questo ringraziamento. Cari professori, amici e tutti coloro che sono collegati attraverso YouTube, mi sento colmo di gratitudine in questo momento e vorrei ringraziare il Signore e tutti voi. In primo luogo desidero ringraziare il nostro Signore per avermi sostenuto in questo percorso del dottorato, in modo particolare per la grazia di questo giorno della discussione della mia tesi. Al professore Francis Leslie. Sono molto lieto di ringraziare il professor Leslie Francis da Warwick University, Inghilterra, innanzitutto per la sua presenza online e per il suo grande modello di benessere psicologico che ho avuto la fortuna di applicare nel contesto indiano. Before thanking everyone else, I would like to thank Professor Leslie Francis of Warwick University, Great Britain, for his wonderful model of psychological well-being, which I had the fortune of applying it among the Indian priests. Thank you, Professor, for being present online with us and for your words of appreciation and for making a beautiful synthesis of what I had tried to do. Al mio moderatore. Desidero vivamente ringraziare il mio moderatore, il professor Giuseppe Crea. Lui ha dimostrato una meravigliosa capacità di stimolare il mio interesse sull'argomento che abbiamo discusso e soprattutto grazie per i suoi costanti incoraggiamenti, per la pazienza che ha avuto, per le conoscenze che ha condiviso con me, per l'entusiasmo che mi ha trasmesso e per la fiducia che ha avuto in me. Grazie di tutto, mio professore. Professor Crea has been more than a guide to me. He has been like an Indian guru, guiding, correcting, and encouraging me as one who would guide his disciple. Vorrei esprimere la mia sincera gratitudine al Vorrei ringraziare la professoressa Cinzia Messana. Lei è stata il mio secondo relatore anche per la licenza 15 anni fa. È la stessa oggi, come allora, calma, gentile, ha sempre saputo incoraggiarmi e guidarmi sapientemente. Ringrazio felicemente il professore Zbigniew Formella per i nostri confronti costruttivi, gli stimoli e la collaborazione che portiamo avanti ormai da tempo. Sono molto grato al Presidente della Commissione, il Rettore Magnifico Professore Andrea Bozzolo, per la sua grande comprensione e sostegno. Un caloroso ringraziamento al Segretario Don Jaroslav Jarek per la sua disponibilità e incoraggiamento. Ringrazio in modo speciale il Professor Antonio Della Giulia, il mio compagno di licenza. Il compagno di licenza e ora il nostro decano di FSE per aver trascorso con me questi 4 anni con tanto entusiasmo e incoraggiamento fraterno. Grazie Antonio. Al direttore, alla facoltà. Ringrazio anche il professor Janos, il nostro decano precedente, e gli altri professori della facoltà, professori Paolo Gambini e Stefano Tognacci. Vorrei ringraziare la professoressa Maria Piccini e Lorenzo Filosa per il loro aiuto in statistica e gli amici dell'Istituto di Psicologia, Alessandro, Cecilia, Wagner, e per tutto l'aiuto che mi hanno dato. Al direttore della comunità di Don Bosco. Vorrei esprimere la mia sincera gratitudine al direttore della comunità Don Bosco, Don Diego Vansetta. Sinceramente, mi mancano le parole per ringraziarlo, perché lui è stato un grande amico, fratello, padre e guida. Don Diego, tu sei una persona indimenticabile per me. È veramente un mio grande piacere poter dimostrare la mia gratitudine alla comunità Don Bosco, in modo speciale a Don Mimo, Don Carlo Maria, Don Cristi, Don Roberto Spataro, Don Wim e Don Miran. E ringrazio anche tutti i confratelli che mi hanno sempre dato una mano dimostrandomi profonda amicizia. Ringrazio in modo speciale tutti i miei amici indiani dalle diverse comunità. Grazie a voi, miei amici. Al nostro superiore e l'ispettore in India. Ringrazio tantissimo Don Maria Arochian per la sua gentilezza e il suo sostegno. Anche se lui non ha potuto essere qui di persona quest'oggi, sono convinto, lui è online e lui fa qualche parola adesso, convinto che mi è vicino nello spirito. Then I take this opportunity to thank our past provincials of Chennai, Father Belamin, Father Stanislas, Father Jayapal, and the present provincial, Father K.M. Jose, for his brotherly love and wholehearted support. I also thank the Vice Provincial, Father Don Bosco, the Economist, Father Edwin, and all my confreres of the Provincial House and the province of Chennai, whose support sustain me always. Alle persone che mi hanno aiutato in modo speciale, I have a very big list. I thank specially all the bishops and priests of the 13 dioceses in Tamil Nadu, India, who cooperated so well in conducting the empirical study. I also thank Dr. Thaddeus Alfonso, who had guided me with his erudite knowledge and statistical expertise, Father Babu Pushparaj and the students of Dharmaburi College, Professor Kandan Mahalingam, who had taught me so much about statistics, who encouraged me and sustained me, especially in the last few months. Special thanks to Father Joe Manath, Father Peter Lutz, Father Eugene Joseph, and Father Gerard Byrne from Manchester, who shared with me in person their knowledge when I met them all on clergy psychology. I am thankful to Sister Christina Anto, who read and corrected the first draft of the whole thesis. I am also very grateful to my dear friends, Jeyaraj, for his expert help to format the thesis, Father Albert Kumar for reading my thesis, almost the whole thesis, for Ravi Aruldas, Father Paul Raj Amalraj for correcting the bibliography and the whole text, and helped me with my text, and Father Ernest Rosario is in Chennai now with his technical help for the YouTube connection as I completed the doctorate. I thank Father Anthony Christie, my friend and my brother, and Father Vincent Raj for his photography and for his help. Father Simon, Stalin, Father Joji and Amal Franklin for seeing to all the arrangements, and all my other friends who are part of this list. Agli amici italiani e ai miei studenti. Vorrei estendere un cordiale ringraziamento ai miei amici italiani, in modo speciale Simona e Caterina, sono qui, loro sono qui, Mara Agostinichi, anche lei qui, Luisa, Roberto, e miei, my niece and her husband, niece Lina and Eric, both of them are here from Paris to represent my family members. I thank them specially. Thank you all, and thank you all those who are connected through YouTube at this moment. Amici compagni, alla fine, con tanto affetto, ringrazio i miei compagni sacerdoti che celebrano con me il 25° anniversario dell'ordinazione sacerdotale, e in modo speciale vorrei estendere il mio ringraziamento ai miei compagni Don Jostrom Isaac, Don Sagayadas e Don Gnanaselvam, che è in Kenya, che mi ispirano sempre. Ultimamente, grazie di cuore a tutti voi. Vi invito cordialmente per la cena alle ore 20 nella mensa universitaria. Vorrei onorare i membri della commissione, il decano della facoltà e il segretario generale e il nostro direttore di Comunità Don Bosco, indossando un vestito tradizionale indiano, anche un altro regalo. Per favore. Grazie a tutti. Una persona che vorrei ringraziare è Don Moran Duerte. Lui è qui con me. Tutti questi 4 anni lui era il mio confessore, il mio direttore spirituale. Grazie Don Moran Duerte. Grazie. Le suore salesiane, c'è la suora Celine, altri non potuto venire. Grazie suore per anche la sua Teresa, grazie per la grazie. Vorrei Professor Giuseppe Crea.
அதை சொல்லுங்க. Professor Andrea, il nostro presidente.
Diego Mansetto. Vorrei
Bene, mi pare ci sia ancora il superiore che vuole dire una parola conclusiva per concludere questo momento così solenne. Don Maria Rocchiam, a te la parola. Se non è più collegato? Un attimo.
Facciamo una foto insieme.
Sentiamo. Sì.
Prima di loro preparano.
È già collegato, sì.
Già collegato?
Sì.
Un attimino.
Sentiamo, vai pure.
C'è il ispettore. Sta Giuseppe?
Don Maria Rocchiam, prego, a te la parola.
Pronto?
Sì, ti sentiamo.
Benissimo. Carissimi, sono molto felice perché sembra che io sto con voi fisicamente attraverso Zoom, ho seguito tutto il processo dall'inizio fino a questo momento. Sono nel mio villaggio nativo, ho visitato la mia mamma nel pomeriggio, è stata molto felice e sono molto felice per questa opportunità. Più felice ancora a questo momento per il compimento di Don Jeyaraj, che conosco da più di 30 anni, è una persona di grande umanità e di intelligenza che ha creato una buona istituzione di servizi psicologici anche qui in Chennai. Oltretutto è un grande amico. Sono felice di aver sentito la parola summa cum laude dopo tanto tempo in questa non lo dirò così alla nostra gente che ha ricevuto un summa, perché nel cambio di summa vuol dire gratis senza nessun lavoro. Non capiranno bene, penseranno che come l'hanno dato il summa senza nessun lavoro gratis. Però questi sono i giochi delle parole delle varie lingue. Non c'era nessun dubbio che lui prenderà un summa, perché già vedevo tutti i segni di questa grande performance oggi, è solo che mi rincresce di non stare lì. Ho sentito con molto piacere tutta la narrazione della tesi. Io pensavo che sono un prete molto soddisfatto nel mio ministero, un poco burnout, anche perché ho un dottorato.
Sì, e perché noi ti trattiamo bene, Don Maria Rocchiam, per quello che sei soddisfatto.
Non ero più sicuro. Un esame della mia vita e della mia salute e benessere psicologico e spirituale, eccetera. Forse lo farò con Jeyaraj e con gli altri quando tornano. Scherzi a parte, sono molto felice, orgoglioso di Jeyaraj e sono felice che lui darà un grande apporto anche alla nostra università. Grazie a Don Crea e a tutti gli altri che avete collaborato in questa tesi. A voi congratulazioni a tutti, non solo a Jeyaraj. Grazie.
Bene, benissimo, grazie.
C'è il mio ispettore, my provincial Father Jose. Father Jose?
Father Jose?
Can I speak?
Yes, it's your moment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, Father Joseph Jeyaraj, we are very happy and very, very proud to see you come to this stage. 4 years ago, when I thought of the psychological well-being of our countries and of all the people in our region, we were looking for a well-balanced and a person's equilibrium to go into this study. and I had the tremendous confidence that Jeyaraj would do. And today, while listening to your doctoral defense, I felt so happy, elated, and I know that my psychological well-being has grown just listening to your entire doctoral defense. So first of all, I would like to thank you and congratulate you for this wonderful work that you have done. And I would like to thank Professor Giuseppe Crea, who has been guiding him, and he has done a good job. And I'm sure everyone that you are going to mediate will experience that purpose in life as well as experience the richness in spiritual experience. So this is our hope and prayer that you will do this mediation for all those who are in any way needing this. So thank you, Father Joseph Jeyaraj, and I was very happy to see Father Andrea, who was giving us the Lectio Divina during the chapter.
Yes.
So thanks to all, and I would like to wish and thank all the conference who are there for their accompaniment, and may God bless you all. Thank you, and once again, congrats to Joseph Jeyaraj for your wonderful, lovely performance in this doctoral defense. Congrats and God bless you.
Bene, allora possiamo concludere questo momento che è stato così bello e solenne, facciamo la foto e ci troviamo a cena. Bene, buona serata a tutti voi.
யார் நல்ல இது எங்கடா ஆளை கட்டுறோம் கை ஏதாவது Open la mano, ok. நாங்கள் போகணும் போல இருக்கிறதுக்கு
Facciamo prima scusami, poi tu
Vinci.